Hello and welcome to Mark and Pete Live. We begin this week's episode with some breaking news. This week, Star Trek becomes a reality. Well, I'm Clergyman Pete. With me, as usual, is Businessman Mark. I think you better explain this one.
Yes, indeed, Clergyman Pete. Well, we are boldly going where no broadcasters have ever been before.
Mhm.
And at this time, it's the news that Captain Kirk from Star Trek is to be launched into space. Yes, this is actually the real life story where William Shatner, who played the Captain Kirk character in the actual series of Star Trek, is to be launched into space by Jeff Bezos. Yes, so the US tech billionaire has decided to back this scheme, and it's the space travel company Blue Origin has confirmed that William Shatner will be blasted off from the Texas plant and off in the into space. Now, William Shatner is at the age of 90, and he will be the oldest person to have been flown into space. Clergyman Pete, I ask you, that does spring some thoughts about what can we learn from Star Trek when what was simply fiction is now becoming fact.
Yes, it's interesting, isn't it? Because you see the image on the screen if you're watching the video version of this of the sort of craft that will take off tomorrow as we broadcast this into space with the 90-year-old actor on board. And I can't help thinking, just thinking about what they actually did on Star Trek, the series, they would have had surely the spacecraft orbiting the Earth and just beamed him aboard. Why don't they
Oh,
do that?
yes.
I mean, that would be
Beam me
so
up,
much more
Scotty.
convenient. Yes, they didn't think of that. I mean, that they needed that. This so what technological advances should we have in reality? Well, I think we should. We absolutely should be able to beam people aboard spacecraft, stop all that tedious mucking around in shuttles, and I guess even in what the equivalent to an airport, spaceport. You know,
Yes.
you'd still have to check in, but you could then just walk in and you're there. So I think that would be something that would be very useful. I mean, what do you think? What's particularly about the Star Trek vision of the future in
Yes.
terms of technology do you think would be good to have today that we need to get a move on?
Well, I like the idea of the transporter. Absolutely. That certainly would cut our carbon footprint down, hopefully.
Yeah, that's true. I hadn't thought of
But
that. Yes, that's true.
but I do like the idea that if you think about the original series, there were lots of technological gadgets, and I have to say that I always was fascinated by the idea of the phaser. Now, if you remember, the phaser had two functions. There was the stun version,
Yep,
and there was the kill version.
yep. Stun and kill. Yep.
Um, I often wondered whether if that were to accidentally go out into a real life situation where there would be mistakes, but
Yeah, yes, but you see, I can see the advantage of that because you've got a weapon that does both. You know, if someone
yeah,
sees you coming with, and you've obviously got rubber bullets, it's not as serious as with a real gun. But here, they just don't know which you're going to use. So I can see
no,
in terms of policing, for example, this would be very useful because you can have it. You know, you can have it automatically set to stun, but they don't know that in the
yes,
particular interaction. So at least you've got the scare there. I mean, I think one of the things, this isn't a technological thing, that I see as being would be very good. They appear to have not peace across the galaxy, but they had world peace pretty much
mm,
sorted out then, and you had all the crew of the Enterprise from being all different races. Now, for
yes,
those watching the video version here, I'm just going to put on the screen this an image of the different actors and actresses playing the parts.
mm,
They've
the
gone
lovely parts.
playing the parts. Yeah, they took their parts lovely, as us theatricals say. Uh, this is this image, which I think you can see on the screen now. This is
Mm.
of the actors from Star Trek, minus actually William Shatner. I can't see him there, visiting.
Well, he hasn't been transported yet.
Yeah,
That's fine.
they were paying an interesting little visit to NASA to
Yes,
look at what the real science was doing in a sort of a publicity stunt. But they're all standing around looking at it. You can see, for those of you who can't see it, I'll just tell you, you've got the actors who played Spock and Sulu and uh, Dr. Bones. What was it? Dr. McCoy Bones,
yeah,
and Uhuru, I can't pronounce the name probably, and whoever the Russian guy was, who I've forgotten.
Chekhov.
Yes, same to you. The
Exactly.
the so that's them going there, but quite a mix of different types of people, different races, different genders, all included there, all peaceably
Yeah.
on the same staff. So that's
Mm.
in the series Star Trek. So it'd be great to have that all sorted out. So if someone could just sort out world peace for me
Well,
and
that would be useful.
end racism,
Yes.
I'd take it as a personal favour if you could do
Well,
that.
what I do like about it is that these actors produced characters, or certainly brought a lot of characters to life, not just in the TV series, but of course you've got to remember there was the film versions of Star Trek as
Mm,
well, which
mm,
took
yeah.
it to another level. But this is the one thing which I think I would learn most about Star Trek, and it was about this idea of exploration.
Yep.
And so the idea, the quest of learning. But what was the point of it all? Well, here's my thought. Being is seeing. Astronauts have lots of thoughts to explore new worlds wherever they can, gathering rocks of sorts through space ports and returning with a little green man. Yes, why is it that we can't discover new life forms? That's what I think that Star Trek
Well,
brings.
no,
Why
yeah,
not?
yeah. Well, that's interesting. Yeah, no, I would take it a bit further. Now, I was about to say, of course, the idea of being able to have instant food, well, that'd be quite
Yes,
a good
they did.
technological advance because they could do that on Star Trek. But I think even better than that was their philosophical developments. I don't know how much of a fan you are of Star Trek, but one of their if you follow the series, it's certainly in the original Star Trek, there was an idea of the Prime Directive that it does feature in the later versions of it as well. But this was very important then. The Prime Directive was one of non-interference.
Mm,
So you didn't interfere if you came to a
that's right.
new civilization
Yes.
on a new planet. You would go and observe, but you wouldn't interfere. Now, of course, most of the plots revolved around them actually interfering because their good nature
Ironically.
got the better of them. But the
Yes.
whole point was that though it was right not to interfere. Now, just imagine if that were written into politics these days. You wouldn't, for example, have had the United States in Afghanistan for the
Ah,
past 20 years. That
yes.
so I think this philosophical idea of having a a prime directive, a non-interference directive, as it's sometimes called in the show, that's something that's not a technological advance, but it's something that I would like for us to have today. That would be great
Mm,
because I think it would this not interfering unless absolutely necessary, uh, not even for the advantage of your nation, and in this case of the what did they call it? It wasn't just Earth, was it? It was they weren't the Empire. What were they? I can't
mm.
remember what they're called now. Well, Starfleet and whoever they worked for. I think that it's not, even if it was for their advantage, you weren't allowed to interfere. So I think that would be something we could learn. So yeah, bring more stuff from Star Trek to today. That's what I say.
Well, I like the idea also, the fact that they could go into different warp factors. So essentially, that you could speed, almost beyond the speed of light in some cases.
Yeah,
There were many episodes where they went back in time. There were some times where they went into the future. Now,
yes,
wouldn't
that
that
would
be
be very
great?
handy. Yeah,
That you could actually see what was actually going to happen in the future.
yes, that would be very handy. Yeah. I mean, all these different technological advantages, of course, were put into the show because people saw that they would be great to have. And Gene Roddenberry, the creator, I would say he had what we on Mark and Pete would probably call rather silly left wing ideas about politics. But one one thing that one thing about that, so the sort of left wing utopian idea, is that you do try and see a good some good aims. The in terms of left wing politics, often there are good aims. They can see what an ideal of what they would want. My argument, our argument, with such ideas, such schemes, for example, communism, are that the methods that are used in order to achieve this idyllic state of living are worse than the outcome. And
Yes.
in fact, sometimes the outcome itself is unsustainable. Like, for example, having people just earning the same amount no matter what they do. That doesn't work. But actually, that didn't. I don't think that made its way into Star Trek. I think the captain earned more than the others. But if you look at it, what it means is into that show generally you've got good aims. We could, you know, look at the practicalities and see how we would get there, and maybe not use left-wing ideas, but rather
Yes.
use more innovative capitalist ideas to get to that route.
Hmm.
Uh, but the aims are
Oh,
there. So Star Trek is that's why Star Trek. I believe that's why Star Trek is so popular. Although, of course, the tremendous acting of William Shatner was part of it, as
well,
he's
of
known
course.
as a great actor.
Indeed.
We're big fans of William Shatner
Oh, of
on this
course.
show.
Well,
Yeah,
actually, that does actually spring just to sort of conclude the show, which
yeah.
is William Shatner, obviously great actor, really brought the character to life. But the thing here is, we should ask ourselves, who else would we like to propel into space?
That's a good
Maybe
point.
we should
Yes,
ask the listeners as to who is not living on this planet properly.
yes. Let us know.
And
That's a good way to leave it. Let us know in the comments below, or just go over to markandpete.com and you'll find the podcast in its audio form, and you'll also find a comment section. Please do let us know. But that's about all from Mark and Pete for this week. Join us next time. Beam us up, Scotty.
live long and prosper.